As far as Stop Killing Games and the initiative goes, Pirate Software is now all but totally irrelevant. People who really matter have stuck their heads up out of the trenches. Credit where it's due, my specific issues with how he did certain things aside, and ignoring some other matters entirely, coming out like he did does require some measure of bravery. He gets 1 pirate coin for that. On a fundamental level, I have some respect for that. But, as we've seen, the guy got the opposite of what he wanted, and now he doesn't matter. Not even to the people he stuck his neck out for. Not really. What have they done for him? Has EA even sent him a fruit basket? It's sad. However, Pirate Software continues to act in exactly the way that is catnip to me. To give you a peek behind my channel's curtain, threadbare as it is, when I upload something here, it's normally a result of me seeing something and getting possessed by the spirit of autism that will not let me rest until I've made a video. Sometimes I run across something that stokes the coals a little bit, but isn't enough to start a fire. A pertinent example being this tweet. There were some things I could say, but I didn't feel strongly enough. Recently though, Pirate's been beefing with a programming YouTuber and his viewers, because the guy took a dump on his programming. Are they right? Is he right? Frankly, I have no idea. I don't know. But I do know that he said this about them. My God, they can't read either, and I love to see a good stone thrown in a glass house. Let's talk about reading, shall we? I like to think I can do it. And a few days ago when he suggested that those who want to understand why he put out his anti-SKG videos in the first place read a blog post, I did. And I recognized 2 things immediately. That blog post is an infinitely better attack on Stop Killing Games than Pirate Software has ever made, and it cannot actually illuminate his motivations for making the videos he did, because it fundamentally contradicts his position. Before we get into the details, let me analogize the problem. 2 people can be against something for different reasons. Let's say some crazy guy is trying to get the government to force literally everyone to eat a teaspoonful of peanut butter every week. One guy comes out against it and says, "We can't do that because peanut butter doesn't exist." He gets torn apart for being even nuttier than the guy suggesting this change. Later down the road, another guy makes a statement and says, "That would kill people. Some of us have allergies." Guy 1 jumps in and says, "See? Now you get why I said that, don't you?" But that can't be true, can it? Because this guy doesn't even think peanut butter exists. Just because you're on the same side doesn't mean every argument made is yours as well. In fact, if Mr. Peanut Butter doesn't exist agrees with the allergies argument, I'd say he's sort of acknowledging that what he said before was totally wrong. Ludicrous hypothetical, but you get what I'm saying. Let's bring it back to reality. Pirate Software has consistently fear-mongered about impacts. Since April of last year, he has over and over and over again harped on his point that the government won't do things right, that it's a slippery slope, that it's dangerous. In April, he cautioned against ever-increasing regulation.
This is the real one. I don't want the government telling indies that they have to have their live service game stay online forever. I don't want that. Nobody wants that. But when you're talking about a legal setting to force people to do this, you're generally moving in that direction.
A month later, he stated the danger of any government involvement because they're incompetent.
And you want the government to get involved in video games? Vietnam is now a cautionary tale for leave government out of games, please. Please. Please keep the government away from video games. Over there, doing whatever it is that they're doing over there away from video games.
To be clear, the example he's citing is Vietnam banning Steam. He's not talking about the war. He doesn't think AAA is going to get napalmed. Now, there is an exception. In 2023, he did beg for China to regulate video games.
These are some of the most predatory dogshit business things I've ever seen in games. And it feels weird, but I agree with you, China. Please get rid of this shit.
But he used to work at Blizzard, and I guess old habits die hard. This take is an old outlier, and his recent approach to SKG is clear. Any government in games, bad. More government, more bad. They will do the wrong thing.
If you think the government can manage anything, you haven't been around long enough. Legitimately. That is a terrifying prospect. letting the government get into video games is a terrible goddamn idea.
With the apparent implication that they're not already heavily involved. Jump forward to August and the European initiative, and he continues to fearmonger about just what and how much the government will do. He warns of damage if the initiative is considered.
It is incredibly vague and will damage all live service games.
His previous total anti-government position has been abandoned here, as I've gone over before, but he still warns of incompetence and claims precedent will be set.
And it's really easy to say like, oh, that'll get worked out down the line. But we're dealing with government here. If we're going to be putting up these types of ideas specifically in front of government, we need to be calling out the right issues, especially if you don't have precedent set. Because now you're going to be setting precedent on something that doesn't make any sense, with people that may not understand the nuance of our industry.
Near the end of his first video, he concurs with Ross Scott's statement that law is unclear, and states that's exactly why it's so dangerous.
EU law is already unclear on a lot of this practice anyway.
And that's dangerous. If we're going to be setting precedent, which could change the way that law works all the way down the road, then we need to be sending the right message.
I think a fair overview of his commentary is that he mostly lays out the ways he thinks damage could be done, and the foundation of everything he says is that he thinks government involvement is dangerous, they're incompetent, or at least ignorant, and he agrees certain things are unclear, so this would be setting precedent. He's literally said as much. Skip forward to July 4th. He shares a blog post from someone else who's against Stop Killing Games as a resource to help us understand why he made those videos. Let me read you something from it. Ross Scott's Undefined Law Delusion. The most maddening aspect of this campaign is Ross Scott's central claim that the law wasn't written for this situation and that laws are undefined or contradictory. This is complete nonsense. The laws are not undefined, they're comprehensive, and they clearly favor publishers. The entire point of this blog post is that the government is already heavily involved in video games, and as a result of that, the initiative doesn't have a chance of getting anything. For months, Pirate Software has been warning that the government's gonna go crazy, man. If this gets through, everything could be destroyed. But the blog post you've shared and told us is the reason you made your videos is arguing that there is 0% chance of any effect because the government is competent, their involvement is deep, and all that will happen is the European Commission will explain why they're dumb. Thor, buddy. You're the guy who was saying peanut butter doesn't exist, pointing months later to someone who totally contradicts you to say, see, that's what I was saying, just because he's on your side. Remember that story from earlier? I was feeling creative today. Funniest part is, of the few things you and this guy do agree with, one of them is that Ross Scott is totally ignorant. But the thing this guy says he's ignorant about is what you agreed with Ross on.
EU law is already unclear on a lot of this practice anyway.
And that's dangerous.
Thor, you shared a blog post that says your position is delusional to explain why you took that position, and now you're telling other people they can't read. It bears repeating. Pirate Software, for months, was sounding the alarm at the impact this will have. On the same day he posted this blog to explain why he says what he says, he said this.
I hope you get everything you asked for, and nothing you wanted. Enjoy your genie, dude. Government's gonna want to talk to you about it now.
We love the monkey's paw here.
Yep.
The same day he said this, to try to support himself, he linked to a blog that says that view is retarded, and SKG's just gonna get brushed off. Like, we're not talking about some tiny nugget hidden in this guy's post. His opening shot is to explain that SKG is actually countering existing government involvement in games. First argument he makes is the case that existing protection for the use of always online DRM and legal protections against circumvention means SKG's claim to want copyright stuff to stay the same makes their ask impossible. If games are required to be playable without any publisher involvement, they'd have to forego their established right to protect their IP with always online DRM, or be forced to maintain that part at least, forever. Way more sophisticated point than anything I've ever heard Pirate Software say about it. Closest I've heard is his bumblefuck point about preventing monetization of private servers. And while the author of the blog argues that this means it would never get anywhere legally, the alternative will be that the initiative leads to legislative change that weakens government protection of the right to use always online DRM to protect their intellectual property, by at least carving out a little exception, if you're gonna destroy the damn game, you have to let go of that bit. Which, I don't know, sounds incredibly based to me. Maybe SKG should have been saying they wanted change to copyright law. There are some statements in that blog post, particularly about ownership and licenses, that I think can be challenged, but I ain't a lawyer. Though I should point out before we move on that the author of this blog doesn't appear to be either, and he's spent a few years working at Yuzu, a games company best known for flooding the world with dog shit. So while the arguments in form are much better than pirate softwares, I don't have a great deal of faith in the accuracy of the legal analysis underpinning them. Additionally, Mr. I used to work at Yuzu likes to do a lot of weaseling. He'll tell us that the regulatory framework already addresses the actual problems. He tells us the movement is asking for rights that don't exist while ignoring the extensive protections that already do. Oh, so when you said it was extensive and comprehensive, you meant within the boundaries of what you think should be addressed. Okay, buddy. We all see what you've done. And I am certainly not sympathetic to the take of, no, you shouldn't be fighting this. They already won before you. They ran to government first, and now they're allowed to put shock collars on you and delete all your stuff. Nah. With that out of the way, we've got one last silly morsel to look at. I was shown that a screen cap from your Discord was posted on Kiwi Farms. Now I can't go and verify for myself because apparently the SKG section of Pirate Software's Discord has been nuked. Feel free to tell me this is fake. But supposedly, in response to someone saying the VGE statement more or less paraphrased Thor's video, he said, "Yep, because I know what I'm talking about, and always have." So I assume you must have read the statement. Did you like the part where they argued that private servers are bad because they're a barrier to government involvement? Yeah, that's basically what you were saying, right?
Please keep the government away from video games. Over there, doing whatever it is that they're doing over there, away from video games.
Did you read the whole thing, or did you just skim for the bits that do line up with you? Did you consider as well who this is coming from? I get it, I like to isolate little bits and pieces to focus on, but when you do that, you gotta make sure you're aware of the big picture so you don't end up looking like a jackass. Like you said.
It is not a difficult thing to not put your whole ass in your mouth live on the internet.
Yeah, man, I just hate government involvement in games. By the way, the group that exists to enmesh the industry with government and shape government involvement, but certainly not get rid of it, begs for it even if it involves getting public funding. They said some of the things I said, so, as you can see, I'm never wrong.